Alright guys, we've got some big updates when it comes to Metroid and Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment on the Nintendo Switch. Let's go ahead and jump right into that. We're going to start off with Metroid and what is going on with Metroid Prime, the classic games that Nintendo has yet to release outside of Metroid Prime Remastered. That came out a couple of years ago to the shadow drop shock of us all at a Nintendo Direct. But since then, things have been a little quiet on the Metroid Prime front. Still waiting on Metroid Prime 2, Metroid Prime 3, and Metroid Prime Hunters. Plus there's Federation Force if you want to count that, or Metroid Prime Pinball. But those games, not so much. But it looks like we have some new hope for Metroid Prime classic games coming to the Nintendo Switch 2, because Nintendo has renewed their trademarks for two games in particular: Metroid Prime 3 Corruption from the Nintendo Wii, and Metroid Prime Hunters, originally on the Nintendo DS. Now, renewing these games doesn't necessarily mean that something is coming out right away, but what I will say is this: it definitely seems very peculiar that these two games were figured out right at the same time. Obviously, Metroid Prime 3, that was the last major console release for Metroid Prime when it comes down to what Nintendo has done. That was back in 2007. Metroid Prime Hunters is not necessarily a spin-off game, but more of a side type of game that introduces other types of characters and a nice multiplayer mode to the mix. But that one's interesting because that's Silas, where you can use him in the multiplayer battles and where he actually has some time to shine. And he's going to be one of the main figures in Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. So the fact that they're doing these two games, at least it was revealed that these two games were renewed at the same time, I don't think it's necessarily a coincidence. So what is the possible outcomes for Nintendo re-releasing Metroid Prime 2, Metroid Prime 3, and Metroid Prime Hunters? Well, Hunters is a DS game, so let's just start with that. That could be some type of NSO release or a Metroid Prime Hunters HD type of thing. That could be that. So it's not really clear exactly how they would go about it. DS games are notoriously kind of weird to bring over because of the dual screens, because of the low resolution, because of a lot of factors on how a lot of these classic DS games were built. DS and 3DS games, I think, are a bit harder to bring over than some of the other console games that Nintendo has in their back catalog. Now, Metroid Prime 3, I think that this is going to happen alongside Metroid Prime 2. So what we got before was like the Pikmin 1 and 2 HD collection. I think Metroid Prime 3 and Metroid Prime 2 could be very much like that, where they pack it together and just say you get Metroid Prime 2, you get Metroid Prime 3 in HD. It's not going to be highly remastered or more like we got with Metroid Prime Remastered, to the point to where it looked almost like a remake in some places. So we'll see what they do with that, but I am confident that Nintendo will definitely have something for us when it comes to a classic release of Metroid Prime before Metroid Prime 4 Beyond comes out. And I think that's one of the reasons why Nintendo has not dated Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, despite showing it off multiple times now. They showed it off at a Nintendo Direct before last year. They've shown it off at another Nintendo Direct that we had for the Nintendo Switch 2. They showed it off at like another Nintendo Direct right before that. And they also talked about it at the Treehouse, and still no release date at this point. And I think part of the reason why is because they actually want to get all of these other Metroid Prime games ready to go and slotted in with their other Nintendo Switch 1 and Nintendo Switch 2 games, plus third-party games that are still all slotted out for 2025. The last half of 2025 is going to be packed. It is going to have a ton of content because Nintendo really wants to push the Nintendo Switch 2 and getting the adoption rate over from Nintendo Switch 1 to Nintendo Switch 2. So I do think that really they're going to try to get these games in before. Metroid Prime 4 could be more of a August or September type of thing. So if Nintendo has some type of big direct in June or July, kind of thinking maybe more July, since June is the launch month for the Nintendo Switch 2, then I think that they can slot that game out, potentially even shadow drop the game in July or August or something like that, and then have Metroid Prime 4 out sometime after that. So I do think that's also a possibility as well with everything, but I think that people just want to play classic Metroid Prime. People have been waiting pretty much much all generation, with the Nintendo Switch 1 for rumors with Metroid Prime 2, Metroid Prime 3, Metroid Prime Hunters, but really it was Metroid Prime 2 and Metroid Prime 3. So I'm hoping something happens with that so we can finally get these classic Metroid Prime games in our hands. But I'm also hoping that the people that are not subscribed to the channel also make sure that you hit that subscribe button and help us out, especially if you want to see more classic Metroid Prime. So hit that sub button, hit that like button, and click that notification bell to get my vids as soon as they drop. Now let's go ahead and get into the next thing here, and I have done an extensive analysis on the most recent Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment creators voice videos. So I went through it, looked through and saw what they had to say, and there is a number of very positive things that I have to say about this game. Still some questions to be answered, and of course the age-old, okay, they're treating it like it's some type of canon type of thing, but is it ultimately going to turn out that? Because we kind of got okey-doked a little bit with Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, thinking that it was going to be 100% canon, and then all of a sudden there was a little bit of a switch up at the end overall. So it looks like they're taking this as a full, real Tears of the Kingdom prequel type of experience, or within the fragments of the story of Tears of the Kingdom, that it's not just a side thing or an alternate story or something, based off of the vibe that I got from what they said, talking about how it's a story that you can fully experience here. It doesn't just depict the battles of the imprisoning war via a Warriors game, it actually shows you the life of the Kingdom of Hyrule after Princess Zelda is sent back in time. And they stress that it's not just, okay, it's just a Warriors game, you're just fighting and doing that within that time period. Like, you're going to do other things. They actually showed a little bit of Princess Zelda walking with the king and everything. So that's one of the things that they wanted to stress, that, hey, look, it's going to be more than just that. You'll get to know the 4 masked sages from the Tears of the Kingdom. So there's going to be other activities that you're going to do. You're going to be able to talk to them, see who they are, see their life and where they are and everything. So I think that's going to be pretty cool. And once again, hopefully kind of leads into this being the real deal when it comes down to it. They also talked about how there's plenty of hidden secrets for fans. So fans of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are going to want to play this one. And it's also great for newcomers if you're playing a Warriors game for the first time, because of the 1 versus 1,000 exhilarating type of combat and everything. So it is, according to them, once again, going to tell the history of the canon imprisoning wars. So let's see if they stick to that overall throughout the whole thing. But I know a lot of you guys, and myself included, I was waiting patiently for them to talk about the gameplay, because as great as Hyrule Warriors is, there was a major problem with Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity on the Nintendo Switch 1, and that was the frame rate. We all know that was a major problem. It was still a fun game. I played and beat the game and thought it was great, but the problem was the frame rate. The frame rate was too bad, and I want to know what they did to refine the battles and make everything better. And thankfully, they delivered here, because they did state that the battles have been refined and evolved on the Nintendo Switch 2. Each character will have more distinction and devise their own strategy. So you are going to feel a lot of different things that you can do and how you can go about levels within each character that's in the game. And this combines items with teaming up with your allies. There's going to be specific things that you can do to create unique combos, to create unique gameplay scenarios. So that's definitely a good thing. Now, they also talked about this, which is probably the most important out of everything here for those who played Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity when it comes to gameplay. The Switch 2 power made it possible to include lots of enemies on the screen, and the amount of enemies in the battles makes it feel more dynamic, like how the imprisoning war actually was. But it was very important, and they said this in there, it was very important to be able to play with higher frame rates than the original Nintendo Switch. So when they said this, and kind of like right before as I was watching it, they definitely showed 60 FPS gameplay. It looked silky smooth, it looked good, and it didn't seem like it was some type of cutscene. Actually, it wasn't. It was the gameplay, and it looked better than what they showed in the original trailer for the game. The original trailer definitely looked like it was 30 frames per second, maybe a quality mode or something like that. But this footage that they showed looked better, looked more refined, and looked like it was 60 frames per second for that clip. So that essentially confirms it that we are probably going to get 60 frames per second based off what they showed there. And at the bare minimum, it is going to be a significant increase and improvement over what we saw with Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, because that was really bad with Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. So I like the fact that they actually pointed that out. They talked about it. They know that was the major issue with the game, and they made sure to address that. You have higher memory bandwidth, you have a much stronger system, you have more power, you have DLSS, you have all these different things that can help a game out like a Hyrule Warriors or like a Warriors game run significantly better if you're not going to take the graphics and blow it out to the 9th degree or whatever, which the graphics in the game look good, but it's not like they're doing anything too crazy overall because you do have to render so many enemies on the screen. So to me, this is definitely the best thing about this creator's voice video for Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, that they acknowledge that yes, the frame rate, we got to make it better than what it was on the Nintendo Switch 1, and then they actually showed the gameplay of it looking like 60 frames per second, or it being in 60 frames per second. So that pretty much made my day and made me incredibly happy to see that. So that was pretty much Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, what they showed off. They talked about how gaming has the power to unite different people from different backgrounds and areas and locations because we experience these different types of things in games, and I have to agree. So overall, things are looking incredibly good for Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. Looks like it's going to be a canon tale overall, but once again, don't hold me to that. We got to go through and play the game, but it looks like it's going to be that way. There's going to be more elements than just fighting a warrior style game in the Imprisonment War. You're going to be able to understand and get to know the characters, and there's going to be more mechanics shown in. They also have better frame rates overall. The game looks smoother, and they talked about that. So everything is all good right now for Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. It's coming out this winter, so this winter that could extend to next year early, but it also could be this year as well. So we'll see what happens if it makes it for 2025 or slips into early 2026. But I'm looking forward to the game. I think it's going to be great. We have plenty of games to play as well this year. There are so many games that I want to get into, plus the free updates. And there's going to be new games announced for the Nintendo Switch 2 as well. So I'm looking forward to all the great content coming to the Switch 2 after launch. But what do you guys think about Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, and moving into the final topic here, guys. We've got some new footage for Raidou Remastered, the Mystery of the Soulless Army, which is introducing the world of the 20th year of the Taisho era, the time which Raidou lives, as well as the demon allies who fight alongside him. So what makes this game super exciting is that one, Atlas is going back in their bag, going back in the well, and bringing back a game that people have wanted, that's essentially been stuck on the PlayStation 2 for decades now at this point. They're bringing that back and putting it on modern platforms. You're going to be able to get it on Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo Switch 1, Nintendo Switch 2, and PC via Steam. It's launching on June 19th, and they showed off a bunch of new gameplay footage with some cool narration and everything. And I think that the biggest thing for me as I watched through this gameplay footage the other day was that the battles, you get right into it. The loading time is essentially nothing, and to me, that is one of the most important things with RPGs, is how fast is it to get in and out of battles. Long loading times or issues getting in and out of battles can just make the repetition worse if there's problems with the combat or the gameplay system or something. So the fact that it's really quick and snappy to get in and out of battles is definitely a good thing. And the combat looks super smooth, looks fun. They've improved and I would say retooled the gameplay from what it was originally on the PlayStation 2. It's much better now at this point. So I love what they're doing so far. The graphics look smooth. It looks like a really high quality remaster of this game. It's not something that they just snapped together in order to make like a quick buck. They actually took their time to remake this one and put it on a plethora of platforms. So what I've been seeing so far is actually really good for Raidou Remastered, the Mystery of the Soulless Army. Now, another thing here that I necessarily don't like is that there isn't any upgrade paths for the Nintendo Switch version of the game from Switch 1 to Switch 2. This is something that Atlas has been doing with their games for quite some time, but it's very unfortunate that if you get the game that has a real physical cartridge on the Nintendo Switch 1, you're not going to be able to get an upgrade path for the Nintendo Switch 2 version of the game, at least to have that physical cartridge if you want it. Now, yes, you'll still be downloading something overall, but it would have been nice if they made it to where you can get that upgrade path for the Switch 2 version of the game. The Switch 2 version is going to be probably considerably better overall with loading times and resolution and frame rates and things like that. So I think they've actually already detailed that a little bit. So you want to get the best out of it if you have a Nintendo Switch 2 overall, and it's already backwards compatible. So it would have been nice if there was something like we've seen from other developers. For example, the Hogwarts Legacy game on Nintendo Switch 1, you can get an upgrade for that for Nintendo Switch 2. So that's the only unfortunate thing from the Nintendo Switch side of it. Of course, if you're getting it on PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series, you don't get the same type of upgrades either. It's on Xbox One. You're not going to get an upgrade path, I guess, to Xbox Series. Same thing goes for PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. So at least it's the same across the board overall. But when it comes to the actual game and what it does, it looks incredible. The game does look really good overall. And they're going to be doing more of these as well as it marches towards its June 19th launch, which I'm actually really excited for to be able to play. And I'm glad that it's not on launch, because we have enough games that are already coming out for the launch of the Nintendo Switch 2. It's a little bit later, so it gives people some time to play, get through whatever games they were playing, and then kind of get into something else. So you keep a steady flow of content coming to the Nintendo Switch 2 as well. So what do you guys think about Raidou Remastered, in addition to all the other stuff that we talked about with Metroid and Hyrule Warriors? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.